My workload had gotten to an all-time high, with the small jobs I was doing on the side for supernatural creatures. I found it impossible to even find the time to look to hire a second person to help out. Thankfully, my partner solved that problem for me. Nick showed up at my office with someone in tow. She was going to apply to work for the corporation, but Nick thought she would be better suited for my office. He didn't even have time to introduce who he brought before he needed to leave. He literally dumped her on me for a surprise interview. Then ditched, I swear. Nick is busier than I am, I commented after he left. The girl appeared nervous and I quickly took her resume to look it over. Sorry, I'm not prepared for an interview, and I've never hired another person before. So this may be a bit unprofessional, I admitted. That's fine. I'm a bit nervous and wasn't really expecting to do an interview today. I thought I was just dropping off some resumes before your partner hustled me over here, she said, looking down at her causal outfit. She would have worn something other than jeans if she knew what the day held, but the rest of her outfit was fine. I quickly read her name was Jessica, but because of how I was holding the papers, I didn't read her last name. I introduced myself and let her sit. The small new AC unit I spent far too much money on was doing its job. I didn't see any mention of supernatural creature work on her resume, but who would put that down? If she was trying to work for the corporation, surely she knew of them. Before I asked, she brought it up. I'm a half-breed. I can work with creatures, but the pay is normally so awful I can't live off it. Because I'm half human, I live as one with bills and all that. But creatures are naturally drawn to me. I can't seem to hold down a regular job either. I was hoping because your office deals with both I could be of help, aside from Ali. I'd never met a half-breed before. She looked perfectly normal, actually, extremely normal. Brown hair cut to her shoulders, glasses, and a regular face, which made her features easily forgettable. Ali was supermodel handsome, while Jessica was plain in a pleasant sort of way. Well, if possible, I would like to put you on some pie cases. It's really just sitting around waiting for the cheating spouse to come out of a hookup spot to take photos. I do deal with creatures, but that doesn't pay well. You'll earn the full fee from whatever case you finish, and I can take care of your taxes and things like that for you, even though my pie cases were my main job. I was finding it hard to do them, along with the supernatural ones and Nick's cases taking over my time. I didn't want to refuse the creatures who approached me for help either. Most of the time they had no one else to turn to, and I could pay my bills with the cases Nick brought over. Sometimes I wondered why I still accepted human jobs. Aside from getting a little bit of extra income, if I gave that up to Jessica, I wouldn't take much of a hit and she would have a reliable job. Nicholas did say you were a private investigator and I would be of use. I've gotten some shape-shifting abilities from my father's side, so I can tail someone without them knowing. I think. I've never tried. I also know a guy who is really good with computers. It's not legal, but he can find credit card and bank statements, hack into security cameras, stuff like that. A computer guy would be useful, but I didn't want to use his skills if it risked us getting arrested. I would look into what we could ask of him later. I was more surprised over her being able to shape-shift. She noticed my expression and smiled. Taking off her glasses, her face shifted into someone entirely different. Her hair length changed and its color changed to black. Even her voice was a little bit different when she spoke. I can't do this too many times a day, or for very long, but I suppose it's a skill that can be used for something. That's honestly pretty impressive. I never would have thought something like this could be passed down. But my job isn't as exciting as you think it is. You might not ever need to use this skill with all the boring and easy cases I take. Maybe with a second person and someone who can find information, we can take more interesting ones. Looking pretty happy with herself, she put her glasses back on and her face shifted back to her default one. I was already going to hire her just because Nick was the one who brought her over, as I trusted his judgment, but she looked at me as if she had just passed a difficult test. It's nice being able to do that without people freaking out, she said, relieved. I've seen weirder stuff. You might come across some really scary creatures if you work here, but they're all harmless. If you give me your banking information, I can get you all set up for payments. I'll also need to know when you're available. I have a few open jobs for you to look through, so feel free to pick one you think you'll be able to do. Jessica looked ecstatic over how I pretty much hired her on the spot, but that worried expression came back over her face. She was holding a folder I assumed was her banking information. She started shuffling her feet while sitting. She looked at it as a blush started to creep across her face. So, about my information, Jessica isn't my legal name. Your partner said you wouldn't mind my full name, but my father picked it out. And supernatural creatures don't have the best choice in names, as you might know. I can't bring myself to change it though. He was killed by hunters, and no matter how stupid it is, It was a gift from him, after meeting a lizard named Hot Sauce. I didn't think I would be fazed by whatever her father called her. You can tell me. I swear I won't laugh. I promised. It's Slim Jim, she said in a small voice. That wasn't too bad. I nearly kept a straight face until she said the last name I hadn't noticed before. Maji. I lost it. I couldn't help it. I couldn't fully muffle my laughter and placed both hands over my mouth to lean over so she didn't see my face. Tears came from my eyes from the effort. When I recovered enough to speak, I kept saying sorry for laughing. If she had a different last name, I wouldn't have lost my composure. She was embarrassed but accepted my apology. We had just got past the hardest part. After the first reaction of hearing her full name, it was much easier to deal with. Nick really did pick out someone I could work with, as we got everything set up, and she was looking over the cases for her to pick from. I couldn't help but wonder why she used the name Jessica. Was Jessica your father's second choice of name? I would think Jimmy would be a better nickname, I said while stacking some papers I'd left unsorted for too long. My father wanted to call me Slim Jim or Burrito. Thankfully, my mother picked the better name. He called me Jimmy, but most people didn't like referring to a girl like that, so I switched it after he passed away. That's too bad. I really prefer Jimmy. When she stayed silent for a few minutes, I looked up to see her staring at me. At first, I thought I said something wrong, but she really was just touched that not only did someone not judge her for the name her supernatural father gave her, but would rather use her preferred nickname. I think Nick somehow knew how important it was for her to be taken seriously. She picked a case and it was clear my new employee was going to give it her all. Once everything was settled, I let her try and finish the job she took. I told her she could give up, or call me if she came across any trouble, but I had complete faith in her on finishing up the task perfectly. After Jimmy left, I was left focusing on cleaning up my office a little. A second person would be working there, so I needed to fix up the place. A knock came from the door and I thought she had come back. When I answered it, I was met instead by a distressed-looking man about my age. He was clearly a client, but I wondered if he was human or coming for a supernatural case. I welcomed him inside and let him sit down before I asked what brought him to my office. I got him a bottle of water and he introduced himself as Leo. I think one of my exes is stalking me, he said, once he was ready to talk. One of them? How many do you have that you think would do something like this? And are the police not doing anything? I asked, trying not to sound judgmental. I wanted to help, but I needed some information. At first, he didn't look as if he wanted to share any of what was troubling him. I needed to promise him I would just use the information to deal with the problem in order to get him talking. 6. My mother always said I had bad taste in men. She was never upset that I came out, just over the kind of guys I dated. I've reported it to the cops, but I don't really have much proof. Some notes, creepy phone calls, my apartment door being slightly open when I knew I had locked it when I left, finding some items missing when I got back. The detective I spoke with last assumed I was making stuff up for attention. He never said it, but this guy had it rough. I wondered if this could be a supernatural case without him being aware of it. If it was, he could be in danger. I suppose he was in danger either way. If there was a human behind all this, then we could find proof and bring it to the cops. If it was supernatural, I would need to call in Nick for help. My partner asked me to call him if I dealt with any supernatural job that went beyond buying a creature human things. Nick was busy and I didn't know just yet what we were dealing with, so I didn't want to bother him. All right, let me look over your place. We can set up some small cameras in places you're comfortable with, and if you are okay with the idea, I would like to watch you as you go to work and when you come home to make sure no one is tailing you. I would feel better if you had someone with you at all times if possible. Do you have any friends or family you can have over? I suggested. Leo shook his head. If he did have someone to call, he would have done so. He was really all alone through all of this. I doubted he kept on good terms with any of his exes. If he suspected someone was stalking him. My mother doesn't live nearby and I keep to myself at work. I don't have any local friends or anyone who I can stay with. I considered checking into a hotel for a few days, but I know that wouldn't solve the issue. I need to figure out if someone is pulling a mean prank or if I'm in danger. And I'm off work for a week, so I'm stuck home alone. The water pipe busted at the restaurant I work at, causing a lot of damage. It happened at the worst time, to be honest. Leo really had the worst luck. He might have a stalker. The police refused to do anything to help, and he was out of work for a while with everything going on. I really did feel sorry for him. He appeared to be a nice guy and didn't deserve any of this. All right, how about I hang around you for a while and see what's up? I offered. I didn't mention a fee and doubted I would charge him anything in the end. I wasn't hurting for money, only time. If I could get this wrapped up quick, then him being safe was the only thing I wanted. His face lit up for the first time. The bags under his eyes showed off the stress he'd been in for a while. Thank you. I really didn't think anyone would help me. Let me fill out my information for you. But let me go home first and clean up my place. Because of everything. I've been too stressed to clean. He filled out a form and I told him I would wait outside his place until it was ready. That way if something did happen, he could yell for me and I could get inside to help quickly. So far there hadn't been any signs of real danger. Letting him be alone for a short while felt safe enough. His apartment was in a decent side of town. The lobby was locked, so whoever got up to his apartment had a key to both doors. He did admit it was possible for an ex to have made a copy of his keys, though he always let them in when they came over, instead of giving them a spare. Over the past year, Leo had gone through a lot of boyfriends. They all appeared nice at first. Despite all his past terrible relationships, he ended up trusting them and then they showed their true colors. So far, out of the 6, he only thought 2 of them would actually do some harm. One broke his apartment lobby's window in a fit of rage when Leo didn't let him inside. The second one kept sending him creepy texts even after Leo changed his number a few times. This was a lot to think about and go through. As I waited in the hallway of Leo's apartment, my phone rang. It was an unknown number but without anything else to do. I answered it. This is Skylar West, correct? I'm Morty. The computer guy Slim Jim knows, said a bored-sounding voice. Did she give you my number? I asked. I'd forgotten about contacting him after she mentioned it. No, I can just find things out easily. I've already done work on your current case, he said, and it made me nervous. No one should know about this case. I didn't put any information about it in my computer, or even sent a message to Nick about it. How did this guy find out? Was Leo somehow connected? How I started? And Morty interrupted with a sigh. Slim Jim told me she was hired, so I wanted to know what you were up to. Through traffic cameras I saw your car following another one. I snagged the license plate, found the name. I wondered if he was a client or what. I found his Facebook and hacked into it. Morty started. You what? He carried on as if I didn't say anything. I looked through his messages to 2 of his exes, asking if they were messing with him, as well as some to his mother, seeing if she had been at his apartment for some reason. I assume you're doing a stalker case, so I looked through to find out if anyone in his life might be behind this. I got 2 names. I'll text them with some extra info. Tell me if you hook up cameras at his place too. I can watch those for you. Wait, just slow down a bit. Okay, you found out all of this in the few minutes it took me to drive to his place. Seriously, who was this guy? He'd done more work on this case than I could do in a day or so. With Jimmy and Morty, I felt as if I wasn't needed in my own company. Time works differently where I am. I'm sort of trapped in a different dimension, as it were. There is literally nothing here but the void of space. It gets boring after never-ending years. The one who tossed me in here wanted me to suffer, and I can't do that if I go crazy. So he gave me access to your world through a phone and a laptop. I need something to keep busy. Slim Jim and I met in a chat room and I'm glad I kept in contact with her. I'm pretty excited to work with you. I love divorce drama, but I've read all the trashy romance books, like all that were ever published, future and otherwise. Time here is so weird. I need some real-time drama, so yeah. It's always awkward explaining this to someone at first. He trailed off, fully knowing how hard all of what he said was to take in at once. My computer guy had unlimited time and just wanted to be all up in some drama. I was mentally arranging where to put this in my list of weird things I've heard. When Leo opened his door, I told him I would be inside in a second. Okay. So Morty, I need to go. But thanks for the work you've done so far. I'll keep you posted about this case and shoot you a text if I need anything else. I told him. There was a long pause and I thought he hung up for a second. That's it. No questions about the different dimension thing. Not even to ask what I did to be tossed in here. He asked, surprised. What did you do? I replied, wondering now that he brought it up. Well, it's a long story. Short answer is I ate a God's sandwich. I'll tell you the rest at some other point. I let Morty go, still unable to fully comprehend most of what he told me. I needed to focus on the case. I could deal with the weird stuff after. Leo did a basic job of tidying up his apartment. There weren't any dirty dishes piled up or dirty laundry laying around, so I didn't mind. When I came inside, we both did a quick look around to make sure there wasn't anything out of place. He kept the threatening notes for me to look over. First things first, call a locksmith to change your locks while I look at these. I told him, notes in hand. He had already handled them, so even if I had connections, there was no way to get fingerprints off of them. Oh, I'm so dumb. I didn't even think about that. I only thought of it when we got to his place, so I didn't blame him for not doing it sooner. He was so stressed. Even the obvious stuff slipped his mind. He quickly called the locksmith from the other room. As I leaned against his kitchen counter looking at each note, They were made from cutout letters from newspaper and magazines. Each was only one word. Mine. Clearly one of the guys he dated didn't like the idea. They broke up and refused to let go. My skin crawled seeing the word over and over again. I checked my phone to see a text from Morty. He had already collected information about the two main suspects. Taylor Burns assaulted his high school boyfriend and had done a few months in jail. He was the one who smashed the lobby window. Jerry Glass had some reports of harassment and a restraining order from his old roommates. They were the only two who got in trouble with the law. The rest of Leo's exes that Morty could dig up simply had some pretty awful things on social media, and overall just appeared to be jerks hiding under a handsome face. I asked Morty to find any proof of the two suspects being in the area, which he happily said he would. He was very bored after all. I just needed to wait on whatever he came up with and keep an eye on Leo until then. I spotted a bag of dry cat food, along with some cans on the counter. They were the only signs of a cat in the entire apartment. When Leo came back from his call, I nodded towards them. You have a cat? Oh, no. I've heard one in the underground parking of the building. I've only seen super pretty blue eyes in the dark, so I've been feeding it. I hope the cat warms up to me. If it's too feral to be a pet, I should at least get it fixed. This guy was way too nice. What he saw in the men he dated was a mystery. I'm glad he was strong enough to leave. He really seemed like the type someone would abuse the kindness of. He said the locksmith would be by tomorrow. I didn't like the idea of leaving him alone for the night. My phone rang and I apologized so I could take the call. Jimmy had already finished her job. I was impressed, since she was finished so early. I gave her permission to pick another one for the day if she wanted. I didn't want to overwork her, but it was nice to have someone to help clear off my desk. I gave her a heads up about what I was doing. She wished me luck on my case. Now that I knew things at the office were covered, I could offer more of my time to Leo. I know we just met, but would you like me to sleep on your couch for tonight? I doubt anything is going to happen, but I think you need a good night's rest and would sleep better if someone else was here. I offered. Leo appeared so grateful for the offer he might cry. He nodded, so thankful for someone finally helping him. After he slept, we could figure out what to do next. I couldn't stay with him 24/7. We needed to figure out who was messing with him before I needed to leave him alone. With Morty now on my side, there was a good chance of that happening. Leo thanked me again as he went off for a nap. He thankfully had a charger that worked with my phone so I could stay on his couch and work, sorting through my countless emails. I waited as Morty kept sending me little tidbits of information, nothing damning about either suspect, but enough to make us keep looking. Leo needed the rest. He only woke up to order some pizza, then went right back to sleep. I kept working away on my phone late into the night, waiting for something to happen until my eyes grew heavy. I blocked the front door with a chair under the handle in case someone did try getting in while we slept. As I curled up on the couch, I listened to the unfamiliar sounds of the apartment as I slowly drifted off to sleep. I was only out for a few hours when something woke me up. I wasn't aware of the feeling until my eyes opened, almost too tired to look around. My eyes adjusted to the dark room. Small blue lights from the entertainment unit blinked in the dark. For a few seconds, I didn't notice the dark shape in the corner. My body became ice cold and tense so hard it became painful. The darkness in the corner wasn't just a shadow. There was someone, or something, standing there. I only moved my eyes towards it, trying to make out any sort of details. Whatever it was looked to have a human shape. It was tall, almost reaching the ceiling. I nearly fainted when a sound came. A soft croaking of a breath from the corner. Screw spiders. This was the scariest thing I've ever dealt with in my life. Somehow, whatever was in the corner knew I was awake and saw it. Arms with long claws shot up and it let out a scream so loud it shook the room. My own scream was drowned out as the dark shape flew towards me. I bolted off the couch still screaming and slammed into the wall, my shoulder hitting the light switch, blinding me for a moment, blinking in the sudden light. I looked around to see nothing inside the room. My body was on fire and yet ice cold at the same time. I knew I saw something and I wasn't dreaming. This place was no longer safe. Leo came rushing out, hair a mess. He heard my screams and feared the worst. I snatched up my phone, then took his hand to get him out of the apartment. We would go somewhere public and safe until I could get a hold of Nick to figure out what the hell I had just seen. Leo was confused, but let me guide him out of the apartment. He saw how rattled I was and offered to drive us wherever I wanted. His car was parked underground, so we rode down in the elevator. That screaming, it wasn't just you, was it? Leo asked in a frightened voice. He couldn't bring himself to ask what else made that awful noise. I didn't want to scare him even more. I just nodded and took his trembling hand. He got his car keys ready in his other hand and we waited anxiously for the elevator to reach the bottom. We both half jogged past rows of cars to get to his. His hands shook so much it was hard for him to unlock his door. The car was older, one that still needed a key to unlock instead of a button. As I waited, I glanced down and noticed something. His tire looked weird. It quickly clicked that it was slashed, just as I opened my mouth to tell him. A burning pain slammed into my back. I heard him cry out as my entire body locked up and collapsed. Everything hurt so much I felt sick. My body was not listening to me as I struggled through trying to regain myself. When I could focus again, I saw a sight I feared. A man had wrapped an arm around Leo's neck to keep him from running. The man was shouting something and had a stun gun in his other hand. That was what took me out. I felt stupid that I let myself be taken down by one. I gritted my teeth trying to stand up. I need to protect Leo and get him the hell out of here. While I was still down, Leo did a wise thing and bit down hard on the arm that held him. So hard it drew blood. He was tossed aside, landing on the ground. I begged for him to run but didn't know if I said it out loud or not. The issue was, he also refused to leave without me. Whoever attacked us was double our size and muscle. He really didn't need the stun gun to overpower us. I was able to get to my knees, ready to fight back, when something happened that I never would have expected. I'd forgotten about the reason why we fled the apartment to start with. I was reminded of it when a dark form burst through the ground. The form nearly transparent. A loud wailing noise stunned us all as the thing that appeared flew towards the man. His face pale, he couldn't even raise a hand to defend himself. The creature might appear transparent, but it was substantial enough to clamp a set of jaws around the man's neck. Blood sprayed as the creature moved quicker than I could react. It sank back into the cement flooring, but the man didn't. He was dragged, leaving a trail of blood along the ground. Leo was close by, so I grabbed him and pressed his face into my shoulder so he didn't see what happened next. The man was dragged along to the other side of the parking garage, up the wall, and when he hit the ceiling, the creature pulled him inside, or at least most of him. His body exploded in a gush of blood and gore. I nearly got sick on the spot. We sat unable to move as we listened to the blood drip down and echo through the parking garage. That was fucked up, I said, not even aware I spoke. When Leo tried to raise his head, I refused to let him. I stiffly made us stand and kept his gaze away from the sight. We needed to get the hell out of there, clutching each other. We made it halfway across the parking garage when Leo stopped. In the darkness between two cars was a set of glowing blue eyes staring at us. They were near the ground but rose quickly. I dragged Leo a step forward before a creature stopped right in front of us. It was at least 8 feet tall, its face completely black under a tattered and ragged hood. The blue eyes stared unblinking down at the two scared-to-death humans. I shoved Leo behind me, trying to think of a plan. The creature didn't have lips, just pointed teeth that fit together when the mouth was closed and that were still stained with blood. It was dressed in rags and, oddly enough, chains made of trash woven together. It did nothing but stare. I was so focused on protecting Leo from this thing, I had forgotten how much pain my side was in. As the creature tried looking over my shoulder, I moved more, keeping the frightened other man from sight. Then, it did something else I never would have expected. With one hand of long claws, it made a motion for me to step aside. I shook my head, refusing. It took a step to again look at Leo, and I stepped as well, guiding my client around. We did an entire circle like that. Then the creature stopped moving. It has the same eyes as the cat I fed," Leo commented in a small voice. Turns out he was never feeding a cat to start with. Knowing how supernatural creatures were with food, we might have a chance to get away unharmed. The creature reached into the rags of its outfit and pulled out something that caught the dim light. A bracelet woven together from snack wrappers and other discarded objects. I looked between the offered item and towards my client. "You're not going to hurt him, are you?" I asked, narrowing my eyes at the creature. It shook its head, those eyes not changing but somehow appearing kinder than before. I took one step aside so the thing before us could hold out the bracelet, offering it to Leo. He paused, stunned at the gift. With a shaking hand, he took it from the creature. Whatever this thing was, it was in Leo's apartment. I didn't know for certain, but I thought it was because it wanted to repay the man for the food it was given, since Leo's car had flat tires, and the creature who chased us from his place appearing not to want to attack us. I decided we would go back to Leo's apartment. I needed to call Nick. "Don't break into his apartment again," I warned the creature, and yet I had no power to back up the threat, dragging the stunned Leo along. We went into the elevator while keeping an eye on the thing also watching us. When we got out and halfway to his apartment, I looked back just as the door closed to see the creature still watching us, the head poking through the floor like a ghost. The moment we got inside his apartment, we both collapsed in the hallway trying to deal with what just happened in a few short minutes. I was going to call Nick, but saw a few messages from Morty he sent when I was asleep. It appears as if Taylor may have murdered someone in his past. And the photo Morty sent of him looked like the man who was now a pile of gore in the parking garage. He couldn't outright prove Taylor was the one who did it, but was compiling evidence. The one thing he knew was that Taylor was dangerous and Leo needed to leave his apartment if that ex was the one stalking him. I told Leo what I found out, and the other man nodded in an utter daze. After everything, I was shocked that he was still functioning. He saw a creature for the first time, and a very unnerving one at that. I called Nick to ask if we needed to leave and what kind of creature we came across. It was late, but he still picked up. When I told him everything, I heard him flipping through some pages. I believe you came across a phantom. They are not human spirits, but are rather named that due to some qualities they have, passing through solid objects, wailing, staying in one place as if they are haunting it, and wearing chains. Overall, they are harmless, only killing one person every decade. If that, there isn't much known about them, aside from the fact they craft chains from anything they find and get attached to places, Nick explained, looking through some old notes. Thank God they weren't overly dangerous. I was going to tell him to bring in 100 agents if it was. We both agreed that Leo's stalker was Taylor. It was by sheer chance that the phantom scared us out of the apartment the same night Taylor slashed Leo's tires and waited for him to come by. The issue was dealing with the remains. My partner knew of a cleanup company that would take care of it all for a cost. I told him to call them the moment he could. Nick was about to give me a lecture about taking dangerous supernatural jobs, and I quickly ended the conversation. I'm glad you came to my office when you did. If you had waited one more day, I hate to think what Taylor would have done to you. Or maybe not. I wonder if the creature saved you as repayment for the food. I mused. Leo nodded, silent and with an odd expression on his face. Looking down, I noticed he was wearing the bracelet the phantom gave him. He spun it around his wrist, holding it as if it was a treasure. I felt like I was hit by a truck. Do you really think he saved me? Leo asked, unable to meet my eyes. I knew Leo had bad taste in men, but never would have assumed he would have a thing for actual monsters. No wonder why his mother was disappointed in him. Come on, man, really? I asked with a sigh. He raised his hands to start to say something to defend himself, only to find out he couldn't. There was no way he could reason his way out of my judgment. This guy really needed to develop some standards. Standing up, I had a feeling I needed to check on. Opening the door, the phantom nearly spilled inside from him, pressing his ear against it, trying to listen to us speak. He quickly righted himself, jittery, and also unable to escape my judgment. Are you going to eat him? Or hurt him in any way? Because if you do, I'll bring down the entire corporation on you. I couldn't do such a thing, but he didn't know that. He shook his head no violently, and I believed the terrifying creature in front of me. Standing aside, I let Leo stand up and address the monster before him, looking flustered instead of frightened. Thank you for saving us. Like the bracelet. I was nearly to the elevator before Leo noticed I was leaving. He was too busy trying to get a name from the monster, though I doubted it even had one. Oh, Skylar, I need to pay you, Leo called after me. Don't worry about it, I replied honestly, not caring about being paid for this job. Paying for the cleanup of Taylor's body would be a lot more than what Leo could afford. I wouldn't mention it to him. Just as the doors were closing, I saw Leo inviting the creature inside so they could talk some more. If they did start dating, this monster might be the nicest boyfriend he's ever had. It was a bit of a nightmare trying to close Taylor's death. There were no traces of the body after the cleanup crew came by. The phantom didn't even get a slap on the wrist for it. Apparently, creatures had some leeway when it came to killing humans to protect another human. It didn't happen often, and most creatures thought the act was beneath them. Taylor was reported missing, and the cleanup crew was going to leave enough proof of him somewhere else to give his family closure on his death, but not how it happened, even though the man might have killed someone in his past. I didn't know how I felt about his death. The sight and sounds of how he was murdered troubled me. I couldn't even make coffee without remembering the dripping noise. I kept in touch with Leo, who also regretted Taylor died, and felt as if it was his fault. He didn't want his ex to be killed, but he was also certain that if Phantom hadn't saved us, one of us would have died that night. He was also feeling guilty over having feelings for the creature. It took him a week to get over those, though. It was only 7 days after everything when he set his Facebook status as being in a relationship. Who even still used that feature? I could barely rest after that case was closed. The moment I came back to the office, there were 6 jobs on my desk, even with Jimmy and Morty helping. It was hard to keep up with them. I started sorting through the requests, wondering what strange job I would come across next.